These are 5 defenses to stream in Week 10. Number 1 on the list is the Cleveland Browns. The Browns face off against the New York Jets team that just got their first win of the season in Week 8. And it took everything they had, including a 23-point fourth quarter, to come back against the Cincinnati Bengals team that has given up the most yards and points this year. But this week, they will not be afforded the same luxury going up against the Browns defense that isn't nearly as generous, having allowed the second fewest yards per game and entered this contest with a ton of momentum. Across their last 2 games, they've racked up 10 sacks, 4 interceptions, one of which was returned for a touchdown, and 2 fumble recoveries. The Jets' quarterback situation also remains a mess, with head coach Aaron Glenn having yet to announce a starter for Week 10. But I think regardless of whether it's Justin Fields or Tyrod Taylor, Cleveland should be able to capitalize against the Jets' offensive line that has given up the 4th most sacks this year. Number 2 on the list is the Buffalo Bills. The Bills face off against the Miami Dolphins team that leads the league in giveaways with 15, with 12 of them coming at the hands of Tua Tagovailoa, who also leads the league in total turnovers. The Dolphins are giving up the 6th most fantasy points per game to opposing defenses. Meanwhile, the Bills are allowing the 2nd fewest fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. The Bills' defense has been noticeably better since returning from their bye, tallying 10 sacks and 3 takeaways across their last 2 games. Divisional games can usually take on a life of their own, but I think in this situation, things will go according to script and the Bills will perform as expected. Number 3 on the list is the Baltimore Ravens. JJ McCarthy pulled off a big win against Detroit last week, but he still took 5 sacks and threw a pick. He's now taken 14 sacks across his 3 starts, and even though he looked better last week, he's still a bit shaky. The Vikings have given up the 3rd most fantasy points per game to opposing defenses, and I think the Ravens should be able to take advantage of a Minnesota offensive line that has looked suspect at best. Now, Baltimore's defense has been a shell of itself for much of the year, but a lot of that is attributed to injuries. However, they are now getting healthy, and it showed last week when they forced 3 turnovers, generated 2 sacks, and held Miami to 6 points. Now, the Vikings do present a much tougher matchup than the Dolphins, but Baltimore should be able to get to the quarterback in some capacity. Number 4 on the list is the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks are arguably the best team in the NFL right now, and their defense is a big reason why. They're tied for 3rd in sacks with 27, are 4th in interceptions with 9, and are holding opponents to the 5th fewest points per game. They're the 2nd highest scoring defense in fantasy this year, and this is despite having already had their bye. Yet they're still available in over 40% of leagues. This week they faced an Arizona Cardinals team that's allowing the 9th most fantasy points per game to opposing defenses. Arizona has come out and said that Kyler Murray will be the starter once healthy, but he has yet to practice in full after suffering a foot sprain. So it's very likely we see Jacoby Brissett for at least 1 more week. Similar to the Jets-Browns situation, I think Seattle will find success regardless of who's under center. Number 5 on the list is the Detroit Lions. After losing in rough fashion to Minnesota last week, the Lions will be anxious to right the ship, and they're in a prime position to do so against a reeling Washington Commanders team that just lost starting quarterback Jaden Daniels to a dislocated elbow. The reality is, even after factoring in the injuries, Washington just hasn't looked like the same team that made the NFC Championship last year. Marcus Mariota will take over for Daniels, and given how he's looked in his few spot starts this year, I wouldn't expect much. In 2 of the last 3 weeks, defenses facing Washington have finished in the top 5. One of which was the Dallas Cowboys, which says a lot about the Commanders' offense. Those are 5 defenses to consider streaming in Week 10. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe and let me know which defenses you think we should keep an eye on in the comments below.